Welcome to the AR Performance Squash Advantage, hosted by me, Ahad Raza, a former PSA touring pro turned elite performance mentor and coach. I break down tactics, technique, fitness, and mindset by analyzing players from the past and present, both men and women. I aspire to teach, empower, and guide transformation. Let's get started. What's up, guys? Today, as promised, we are going to check out part 2 of 3 of my super detailed analysis between Mohamed Shorbagy and Ali Farag's match in the 2021 CIB World Tour Finals. I'm going to show you a breakdown game by game in a way that honestly, and I'm not saying this in any form of boastful manner, 99.9% of the people would never have seen before or would not complete because it is very time consuming. But this is the kind of analysis that professionals complete and need when they're really trying to improve their game. So let's check this out. I'm really excited. Here we go. I know it seems like a lot, so let me walk you through everything first. This is an analysis of game 1. Shorbagy won this game 11-8. This is my little legend and acronym and all my little acronyms for what the different shots are. This is where the different shots were played throughout the court. In the second court image you see, I've labeled them as with a green line or a red line. The green lines are winners, the red lines are errors. And then on the right side of your screen, you see one court with Shorbagy's name, one court with Farag's name. This is a breakdown of all of the winners and errors and strokes that Shorbagy had, and similarly what Farag had. And what this is going to show you is a bunch of stuff. Number one, a general theme in this game, the winner to error ratio was 11-4, which is almost a 3-to-1 ratio. And you notice from a momentum perspective, when you see each rally one after the other, as you see me listing over here where I'm pointing the mouse, there weren't really major strings of consecutive points one after the other for either player. Each player would get one or two, and it would kind of go back and forth until the end, where the game ended with 4 consecutive points for Shorbagy. One of them was an error by Farag, 2 were winners by Shorbagy, and the 4th one was a stroke in favor of Shorbagy. The other thing that's really apparent when you compare these two diagrams at the top right is that Shorbagy did way more. Whether it was a winner or an error or a tin or a stroke, he did way more. And you can just see that purely by the number of letters you see here. Each letter denotes one winner or error or stroke. Farag did way less in this entire game. So just based on the fact that Shorbagy was so active throughout the game, he was creating the game, he was creating the rallies, he was dictating. Farag was absorbing and not really doing that much. You also see that Shorbagy is dominant in the middle of the court. Yeah, he hit one winner kind of in the front right, or from the front right, but he's hitting all of his winners and errors from the mid region of the court. Farag is a little bit more dispersed, and he's not doing that much. Now, if you break this down even more, you see that Shorbagy on his backhand hit 3 winners, 2 errors, and had 1 stroke in his favor. But on his forehand, he hit 5 winners and 1 error. So you can clearly see from this, his forehand was his strength in this game, and arguably is generally his stronger side. And in this game, Shorbagy's overall winner to error ratio is 8-3. And then you have 1 stroke on top of that, which is another point. So it could arguably 9-3, which is a 3-to-1 ratio. He's almost at a 3-to-1 ratio. Farag, on the other hand, had a 2-to-1 winner to error ratio, but he also had 3 strokes in his favor. So this is starting to give us a picture of how each player likes to play. Shorbagy is very successful when he's dominating and hitting his winners from the midcourt. Farag is a little bit more spaced out in his game. And you also see how active Shorbagy is. He's very proactive with his game. Farag didn't do very much. And the outcome was Shorbagy won the first game and Farag lost the first game, 11-8. Now if we jump to the second game, over here we see this game, whether you look at the top left diagram or the bottom left diagram, This game is far more spread out. There's a lot happening in all areas of the court. And if we jump over to the different players' boxes, you see Shorbagy is also spread out through the court, and Farag is actually concentrated a bit more in the middle, but he does have some things on the edges. And what you see, if you remember this game, Farag won 11-8. The winner to error ratio in this game is 12-5 for both players. But now if you look at Shorbagy's winner to error ratio, he's at 6-3, so 2-1 ratio with 1 stroke in favor. And this time Farag's winner to error ratio is 7-2, so actually greater than 3-1 plus 1 stroke. And what you also see is that not only did Farag's winner to error ratio improve, he's also far more active. He did a lot more. He hit 7 winners and he had 2 errors plus 1 stroke. So just the quantity game over game, meaning from game 1 to game 2, increase, which means Farag was more aggressive, he was more proactive, he was initiating more of the rallies, and he executed his stuff pretty successfully given that his winner to error ratio was actually greater than 3-1. You also notice when I analyze this kind of point by point, that at the end of the match, the same way Shorbagy won 4 in a row in the last match, at the end of this match, Farag actually won 2 in a row back to back after a stroke from Shorbagy. So he closed out the match with a combination of 2 points back to back. And the other thing I noticed was that Shorbagy was unable to, and you can clearly see it from the diagram, Shorbagy was unable to dominate the middle of the court, whereas Farag was a little bit more dominant in the middle of the court. So in this case, Farag was far more effective at forcing Shorbagy around the outskirts of the court. Farag was located more in the middle of the court, and Shorbagy was forced to do more and initiate the play around the external or the periphery of the court. And as a result, what was the outcome? Farag won the game 11-8. Now if we jump over to the third game, we know that Shorbagy won 13-11 in the third game. Remember, this is a best 2 out of 3. And here, whether you look at the top left or the bottom left, this is what the game looks like. Now the game is being played in different parts, but it is largely centered in the middle of the court, with some play in the front left. And if you jump over to Shorbagy and Farag's maps, they're both actually doing a fair bit from the mid regions of the court. But one interesting trend is that Farag is mid and back. He's initiating from the back and the mid. Shorbagy is mid and front. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. It's just different preference. It is probably a little bit higher percentage, in my opinion, to initiate from the front, just because you are closer, you can put those drops in. Playing long drops, for example, there's a higher margin for error just because you are that much further from the front wall. So possibly something there. But now if you look at the overall game winner to error ratio, it's 13-5, so just a little bit below the 3-1. If you go to each player, now in this case, Shorbagy had a 7-2 winner to error ratio, so greater than 3-1, and he had 3 strokes in his favor. Farag had a 2-1 winner to error ratio and 2 strokes in his favor, but you just see that not only was Shorbagy's winner to error ratio greater, but Shorbagy did a little bit extra in the game. He hit 7 winners and 2 errors. Farag hit 6 winners and 3 errors. So the winner to error ratio is better, and Shorbagy was a little bit more proactive, which led him to winning the game. And he was arguably attacking from better positions, being the front of the court, instead of Farag attacking a little bit more from the back of the court. And both of them were in the mid-court a reasonable amount. Now, when it came to any momentum, what I noticed was there was a lot of back and forth, but there was a point near the end of the match. I think it was the last out of the last 4 points, 3 of them were actually strokes, and this is where the players were really cagey. And if you remember from the first video I posted about this match, Farag leapt up and he tried to go for a cross-court nick when he had match ball in the third game, because he really wanted to win it, because he could feel the pressure, because he knew if he didn't win it, he's out of the tournament. So you could see that caginess, unfold in the match, and you could feel it because the players were a little bit edgy. You could see them a little bit on edge. So really that summarizes each game, and what I'm going to ask you to be ready for is the final video in this installment of the 3-part series, which actually shows you a breakdown game by game, side by side, player by player breakdown, game by game, and over there we can actually do even more comparison. If you enjoyed this, give it the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. I can't commit to doing a ton of these on a regular basis because they do take a lot of time, but I wanted to share this because this is the level and depth of analysis that we really need to start engaging in if you want to compete at a high level. All right, folks, have a great one, and I will see you in the final video.